Okay, as you can see for this week's video blog, I have one of my puppets back. I've got one of my rabbits. I've got 3 different rabbits, and this is one of them. I've got the rabbits with me, the puppet with me, because I want to talk about listening to children, and I mean really listening, not just sort of having their words around your head. I mean actually listening to what they're saying. I also want to talk about listening to parents. I've done videos before about parent and pupil voice, and these are particularly important issues. It's on my mind because I'm going into a school this week to support a child who is trying to get the message across to the school about what she needs to support her, both her learning but also more particularly being in school. It's somebody with autism, and there are aspects of school with which she is struggling, and I'm there to support her as she puts her case to teachers there. So there's a few things. The important thing is to actually give yourself an opportunity to hear what they have to say. One of the things I offer children is a learning to support my learning. I need a learning support card. It's really simple. It's just got maybe 5 points at the most, just 5 things of what will support my learning, and they will be things like having a colour-coded whiteboard. It might be having saying my name first, using yellow paper, having a different background to the whiteboard, giving me thinking time. Any of these strategies may be the thing that will support them. Now, I remember having a meeting, a review meeting, going through. I'd done some assessment on a child. We'd worked out that this child had dyslexia, and I was talking to the child and their parent in a meeting, explaining the assessment and what it told us. And so I'm sort of saying, what works for you well in class? Is there anything that you find awkward in class that we could maybe help with? And this child said, yes, when somebody comes up and asks me if I want help, that is the hardest thing. I thought, in what way? They said, because I didn't need help before they came up and asked me, because I was getting on with it. But the minute they asked me, it interrupted my train of thought. And then all my ideas went out of my head, and then I did need help. And they'd have rather have worked independently. So we talked about this, we talked it through, and it wasn't that they didn't want help, but they didn't want to be interrupted. So we came up with a system of a card. So one side was red, one side was green, and if they wanted help, if they were working okay and didn't need help, they had it on the green side. If they wanted help, they'd turn it to the red side. And what we did is we gave everybody these cards so they didn't have to look different. These children didn't want to stand out, so all of them had it. And then when they got planners, we had a page, a double-sided page in the planner, so one side was green and one side was red. Pardon me. And you could flick it onto whichever page you wanted. So if you wanted help, you just turned it to the red side. So that was one instance of listening. Then came the next incident of listening about exactly the same thing, with the child who was colourblind and didn't know which sign it was. Well, they're both the same. So we put a tick on the green side to show actually I'm okay, and a cross on the red side, so that, and when we had this put into the planner, we had it with the tick and the cross, so that as well as the colours being very easy for the TA or the teacher to spot, the tick and the cross made it clear to the child which one they were going to have. So listening makes a difference. We can easily get it wrong. Another instance, which I'm sure I've mentioned before, is a child with autism who had spent an entire lesson just focusing on the fact that this line and this line on this spelling thing were 1 pixel out on the whiteboard. I hadn't noticed that. I would never have noticed it, but listening to the child, when I said, oh, what's bothering you? And he said, that's higher than the other one. I'm like, oh, I don't think they are. He said, no, come up to the board. Went up to the board, and it was 1 pixel. Well, that taught me to make sure my pixels were in line for future things that I did on the, my lines were on the same pixel, on the same level of pixel. I don't know how you put that, but you know what I mean. So it's about listening to the child. Part of it is about being approachable. So puppets, hence the puppets, I've used puppets several times. I tend to go for animal puppets because so long as you keep the puppet sort of moving slightly, sort of like little bits of vibration for a puppet, puppet for an animal that might sort of be a bit twitchy, having it maybe cleaning itself. If it's a puppet with a tail, you can swish its tail. I might decide to swish its ears a bit, which gives it a bit more character. Very soft, so the child will engage with the puppet, and then it's our job to listen to what the child is telling the puppet. If the puppet is talking about something that the puppet might be doing wrong, maybe that's what's bothering the child in the child's own life. So we need to find opportunities to really listen to our children when they're not necessarily speaking directly to us, they're doing it through maybe the puppet as a sort of intermediary or something. So the other thing is to make sure that we know our children. So we make assumptions. I've mentioned this one before, a P and a B, P and B. We see them the other way around and we think of it as orientation. It could be a hearing issue. It could be that P, not voiced, B, voiced, made in the same way. They're actually confusing the sounds. So the same as with K, G. Same thing happens. One is voiced, one is unvoiced. So where I had my office when I was Senko at school, it was right near the sort of changing area where kids would just come in and out all the time. The cloakroom, you know, where they would hang up their coats. So as they went past my room, I would always call out, "Oh, hi there," and their name. If they're not responding, and they normally do, it could mean their hearing is down. So that's another way of listening, if you like, not necessarily to the words, but to the response or lack of. So listen to what you don't hear as well as what you do hear. The other thing is about giving them a chance to tell their story, asking the right questions. If we say to a child, when we're doing maybe an Erlin's test where you do the coloured overlays and you're seeing whether it makes a difference and they've got an issue with the black and the white, black print on white page. If you start asking them questions, you know, does this look okay? They don't necessarily know because it is their norm. If they've always had the letters slightly shaky or the letters swirly or the letters jumbling around in order or whatever it happens to be, if that's their norm, they don't know that that's not the norm, if you like. It's not a typical person's way of perceiving the print. So if you're doing an overlay, if they say, "Oh, that's better," and you don't know, you might have started by saying, "What's your favourite colour?" and pink, and then they choose the pink. Is that a coincidence? If they say that's better, if you ask why, don't put ideas into their head, just ask them the question. And if they say, we've had it where children have said, "Because the letters aren't moving anymore," well, then there's clearly been an issue. And then you can take their lead, and then when you try another colour, you can say, "Are they moving more or less with this colour?" You can follow on, but ask them to tell you their story. Okay, so what's wrong is a bit too vague. Has anything happened differently over the weekend? Just ask questions that are fairly open. So what's changed at home? What's changed in your life recently? What's different? Ask an open question, so let them tell the story. Don't make the assumption that we know. We don't always know. And so it's about giving them the confidence, hence the puppets, the sort of the feeling of being comfortable in talking, giving them the opportunities to talk, and then listening to what they say. Okay, because we don't necessarily know what it is that they're experiencing. The same is true of parents. Quite often you'll get a parent who, if you've got, say for example, you've got a girl with autism and the girl behaves perfectly at school, you see nothing wrong, and the parent starts saying, I don't know what to do with, and they mention the girl's name. If it's very easy to say, to think, bad parenting, no boundaries. It may be that there's a lack of parenting skills. That is a possibility, but it could also be that there is something else going on. So we need to listen when parents tell us that there's something going on at home with the child's behaviour. Just because it's not what we see, there could be a reason for that. So It could be that the child is trying so hard to fit in at school that they're not allowing for any non-typical perfect behaviour, as it were, to happen at school. They want to fit in, they want to get it right, they want to behave, they want to be seen to be a good child at school, doing as they're told. And then at home, the effort of that has exhausted them, and then you get the meltdowns and whatever, that it may be defiant behaviour, what appears to be oppositional behaviour, and it could be just that they're safe to do that at home. It could also be that, you know, we've had situations where parents have said to me, maybe a teacher shouts. We've had where a teacher is shouting. The child wouldn't say anything against the teacher to the school, but maybe when the parent says, "What's wrong? Why are you upset?" they'll tell the truth to the parent. So if we listen, and in order to listen to the parent needs to be comfortable in speaking to us. So I'm not necessarily talking about getting puppets out for the parents at this point, but it's about having that open door if you can, but also allowing time for that first meeting with the parent. So I always, if there's a reason to meet with a parent, I clear my diary first for a longer period of time. I have a defined time. I will say, you know, I'm teaching at 3 o'clock or whatever it is, so they know the time that it's going to end, but I will have allowed significant time. I was fortunate in my last school, I was allowed to, you know, I was able to allow up to maybe an hour. But even half an hour, if you've got a long enough time to talk and to get the parent comfortable in talking to you, they're more likely to explain things that are happening, and they'll be able to tell us things that we wouldn't otherwise know, things that are happening at home that are affecting the child. So it's about creating a welcoming environment, you know, offering a cup of tea or coffee or a cold drink, having a box of tissues on the table is really important, because quite often when you're having these conversations with parents, there can be a few tears. If it's about the child having potentially some form of learning need, that can cause a lot of upset. If the parent is at their wit's end with the child's behaviour at home, and all they've ever heard from school is, "Oh, your child is gorgeous, they're always doing as they're told, they're perfect," they're thinking, "Oh gosh, am I going mad? Am I doing something wrong?" Having those tissues there is very important, so they can know that they're allowed to be upset, that's okay. Listening to the insight they can give us that we can't have. We're not at home with them. It could be that there's an issue with a sibling issue. It could be, you know, there's one child I taught where the one of the siblings had serious multiple areas of difficulty, mental health issues, behavioural issues that were a result of other special needs issues, and the girls behaved really, really well in school. You wouldn't know that at home what they were dealing with were violent outbreaks and all the rest of it. So we need to listen to the parents so we know what it is. So if that child in school is falling asleep, it could be that they haven't actually slept at home. We don't know that. But if we give the parent the confidence to be able to talk to us so they can trust us and talk to us, gaining the parent trust, listening to the parents, these are things we're expected to do. The Code of Practice tells us to do this. The Lamb Inquiry told us to do this. We need to hear what parents say. We need to find ways of hearing what the children say. And if they can't tell us articulate it, then we have to find visual ways, other ways for the children to get their voice across. But parent voice and pupil voice really, really matter. They can help us help the child. Thank you.